The famous story for me is I've had an inmate threaten to kill me, and I went, today?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pineapple Improv Show. I'm your host, Mike Brown, and today we are discussing using humor to diffuse situations. Today, my guest is Alex Mann, coming all the way from Boston, Massachusetts. Alex, how's it going? Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be on board.
Alex, can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do? Where do you work?
Sure. So I work for a sheriff's department in Massachusetts, and for those not familiar with that, we essentially run the jails, pretrial, and short-term sentenced inmates who are waiting trial or have a small sentence, and sometimes they come in with varying mental health issues, drug addiction issues, and personality issues that we need to balance in a everyday fashion among all these multiple personalities.
So it's a pretty easy, low stress, very low key kind of a job, is what I'm
Oh
gleaning.
yeah. I mean, it's never like the movies. It's not Shawshank or anything like that.
Alex, what are some of the challenges that you face in your day to day?
So, believe it or not, the day-to-day stuff is pretty easy when you're the regular staff member assigned to a certain place. The population that's there gets used to you. They have your expectations. They know how to interact with you. They know whether or not you're an even keeled person or stuff like that. So it's like that college professor. You kind of just start to figure out what they want from you, and you can kind of match that. So for me, I've always used humor as a way to interact with people in a way that can build a relationship. It's not friends, but friendly enough where we can cohabitate.
What is the trust factor like there? Because I know that whenever in my personal life, when I am trying to develop or cultivate a relationship with someone, as deep or superficial as that might be, um, there's always a little bit of trust that comes with infusing humor. If you can get someone to laugh, then they like you, which implies a sense of trust. So, what is that like for you in your job?
So I'll give you an example of the extremes. So there have been plenty of situations where somebody is actively having a mental health crisis or a drug addiction withdrawal. They are now confined. They've lost some freedom. They maybe had a bad phone call. They were thinking they're getting out bail, whatever, and so they're acting out. They're stressed. That's not their desire to be free is not there. So when they're acting out, they can make certain threats of violence or things like that. And so the famous story for me is I've had an inmate threaten to kill me, and I went, today? Where were you yesterday? Like today, I'm in a really good place. Yesterday, I was willing. Like you could, that would have been an easy win. Like today, I'm gonna have to say no, and they just look at you like, well, now what am I gonna say? But if you're able to diffuse that situation and you can have a moment of real human interaction because laughter is really healing in a lot of ways, and somebody who's hurting like that, when you can connect with them, everyone else goes, okay, he's not gonna hurt us. There's an expectation of I will be heard, I will be respected, and this isn't going to get bigger than it needs to be. So it helps when now all of a sudden you say to a guy, hey, like you missed the trash barrel when you threw that away. Can you please throw that away? And they're like, yeah, okay. Because they've seen you show respect in
Mm.
other ways that they kind of go, all right, if you're giving it, then I'm going to give it too.
When you started doing improv, how did that change your approach to your job?
Like for an example, when somebody says, I'm seeing dragons, well, arguing with you that that dragon isn't going to hurt you isn't going to help. So by accepting that this person is now seeing a dragon, you kind of go, okay, well, what is the dragon doing? Talk to me about this dragon. Now all of a sudden, I don't have to agree, but I'm validating.
Yeah.
It takes somebody out of that moment and says, okay, I'm not alone. You may not, and I'll admit, I don't see it, but tell me, what is it doing? Like, does it have big wings? Is it breathing fire? Like, all of a sudden, now that story is being validated. So they don't feel alone in that moment seeing the dragon. And that actually happened.
What is your relationship like with your inmates as opposed to your coworkers' relationship with their inmates?
I mean, I've had conversations with inmates who actually the term we now use is just as involved people. But I'll have conversations with somebody who I may have some history with because I've been there for 28 years. I know them. I've seen them kind of grow up through the system. I've seen their families at visit day. I can have a different conversation with them. I think what sometimes is that those of us who can use humor are the ones who, when there is a crisis, you want us there. But at a certain point, that crisis isn't going to get solved, and you need the more dominant, stronger force of like, no, I'm taking charge, and then that's when we step aside. So it's a good balance to have. You just no one person can be everything.
Are there any improv games that you've played in the past that you can point to and cite that have helped you kind of create and develop, maybe not create, but help strengthen your resolve in diffusing these types of situations?
So the ones that I really like are the ones where they're a pattern game where you have to remember everything that's going on. So there's the one that I really love is where you'll circle up the team and you'll do three different rounds. So everyone does like I'm thinking of a candy bar, so everyone says their candy bar, and then there's somebody thinks of a soda, and then somebody thinks of a car, right? So then everyone starts passing that energy around, and what I do, I don't know what others do, but my eyes open wide, and I'm now like this, like, okay, who's passing me what energy next? Because I want to be able to receive that. And in corrections, there could be a problem over like to your right, but if I'm focused in on that, I could be missing a problem to the left that is being diverted on purpose. Um, so it allows me that ability to have a multi-faceted view and interact with it all and absorb that information and really decide what do I need to focus in on. Because if I ignored what was happening on the left, maybe someone's being, taken advantage of and all their canteens being stolen, or maybe they're being assaulted. So it's an interesting balance for me, but it also allows me to store multiple information during the day where multiple inmates will say, well, I need this, I need that. Somebody says, well, I need to get a new t-shirt. My visitor was denied. I need this information. So instead of always having to take notes, I can literally start absorbing all that and go, okay, I need to follow up on this. And when you come back to somebody and say, oh, I have the answer to that without them asking you for follow up, it gains a level of respect that, okay, what they said was important. And they feel like they feel some validation in it.
I absolutely love that. Alex, our time is starting to wrap up a little bit, but I wanted to give you an opportunity. Uh, Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Are there any events coming up that you would particularly like to plug?
So yes, I would say that the agency I work for has a new reentry program that launched recently with funding through a nonprofit. It's called the Hope Center, and the idea of that is to provide services to people who are recently getting out or have been out and are worried about coming back into corrections. Right, we want to try and keep them out into the community with their families and being productive. I've interacted with a lot of comedians lately who are celebrating their sobriety. And I thought, what better way to add to somebody in recovery in their tool belt, saying, if I could learn how to do stand up, or I can see other comedians doing stand up in a venue where there is no alcohol, there are no drugs, and it's celebrating sobriety, that would be great. Well, that transitioned into from that event to in January, they asked me to come back and teach a workshop for up to about 10 students from recovery houses. We're going to teach you how to take that story and make it into a 5-minute set. And then we're going to find ways to get you into other shows. And we'll get you on so you can now have this other way of dealing with your struggle to stay sober.
That is absolutely amazing. And when does this class start?
So January 15th, I believe it's a Wednesday. I just got the flyer from one of the people working at the center, and we're really excited about it. The show we had for the sober comedy night had 200 people there. So we have really good contacts in the community sober houses, and so we're going to reach out. And so the idea is, if this takes off and we fill the 10 seats fast, that in a few weeks after that, we'll find another date in the week and we'll offer another 6 week program for people on a waiting list.
If you guys want to find out more about the Hope Foundation or any of the work that Alex is doing, definitely check out the links down below. Well, everyone, that's our time today on the Pineapple Improv Show. Thank you so much for watching. This show comes out every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time on LinkedIn, maybe YouTube. We'll see. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us here today, and be sure to catch next week's episode. See you guys later.